Because she sponsored a bill called the Student Borrowers Bill of Rights, and here's what it does. It says, don't you dare drop out of school because you're afraid to borrow $10,000 or $20,000 more. Thousands of young people are doing that. They say, I can't pay it back. This bill says, no matter how much you borrow or how little you make when you get out, remember your college degree is worth more than $1 billion to you and to the rest of us. Don't quit, because you now have a right to pay that loan back as a fixed low percentage of your income over a longer period of time. Stay right there and make the most of your lives. The last point I want to make on this is, she thinks college graduates should become public servants and will never get rich. If you're a teacher, a teacher, a nurse, a fireman, a policeman, a mental health worker, you do that kind of work, your service should repay your loan, and every year your service should not. She believes in research. She believes we put too much politics and too little money into research. Energy research. We've got to find a solution to this coal problem. Now, there are a lot of environmentalists who want us to give up coal altogether. We can do that. They wouldn't like it in Montana very much, but we can do it. But it wouldn't solve the problem. You know why? Because China is now burning more coal than the U.S., Europe, and Japan combined. And they come on with a new coal-fired power plant every 10 days. So we need to figure out how to solve this problem. Not just for our own coal mines, but for the future of the young people on this planet. We need to do more manufacturing research. We can bring manufacturing jobs back to America. And we've got to do more biomedical research. You know, a big percentage of the kids in this crowd today, under 21, are going to live to be 100 years old. And they never clap when I say this, but trust me, the older you get, the better that'll look. But here's why. We got about 10 years worth of work to do on this energy transformation. We will create more jobs than we know what to do with. After that, an enormous number of our jobs will come from biomedical activities that are necessary to make those 100 years good. You don't want to spend the last 25 years of your life with Alzheimer's. You don't want to spend the last 35 years of your life with Parkinson's. More to the point, you don't want to bring your children into a world like this world where we are tripling the number of children born with autistic conditions every 20 years and nobody knows why. A lot of people have opinions, but nobody knows. And we need to know. You don't want to be a Native American living on a reservation where you have this rampant childhood diabetes explosion. So your best friend dies at 35 after losing a limb and going blind. You're 100 years old. You're missing your best friend for 65 years. We have got to get this country back into solving these problems, into stem cell research, human genome research, and doing the things that we do as a whole. And she will do that. I just want to make one last point on this. You should vote for her because she is the only candidate who has accounted for every last dollar I just talked about. You can go on her website, HillaryClinton.com, and find out how every last dollar is accounted for, because she thinks it was a terrible mistake for the Bush administration to abandon the balanced budgets and surpluses I left you with. It would have taken our country out of debt within 7 years. There would be no problem with the baby boom retirement. And you will never be able to enforce our trade laws again if we don't fix this. Now, all of our candidates have had interesting things to say about trade. They all think we need a better deal of trade. Hillary's been very specific. She wants several changes in NAFTA. She wants to have all labor and environmental standards in all of our trade agreements. She wants to create a trade enforcement officer who is publicly identified to you and accountable to you, who has to make a report every month about what they're doing. But the reason you ought to support her on this is that she's the one that has closed the circle and told you no trade agreement's worth the paper it's printed on if you cannot enforce it. You agree with that, don't you? Okay. Trade enforcement is 1/5 what it was when I was president. And the reason is the deficit. Now this is like healthcare costs and healthcare coverage. So just walk with me through here. Who do we have big trade deficits with? China, Japan, Korea, and the oil sellers. Those are the big four, okay? So every day we got to borrow money to keep the doors of government open, pay for the soldiers, do all this stuff. Guess who loans us money in order? You couldn't make this up to save your life. China, Japan, Korea, and the oil sellers. Now do you see why we don't enforce the trade laws? Same reason you're not going to get up tomorrow morning or Monday morning and mosey down to the local bank and just slap the daylights out of the bank president. No matter how bad you want to, you will not do that. Because you might not be able to get a loan for a week or two. Now we're all laughing, but this is really serious, folks. It's outrageous that we added $4 trillion to the national debt, put a $30,000 birth tax on every child born in South Dakota, to give people in higher income group 5 tax cuts, and borrow money from the Saudis to pay for our soldiers, and borrow money from the Chinese to buy oil from the Saudis and do all this stuff. It's crazy. So if you care about this, you should vote for her, because she's going to take our country back to a balanced budget and give these young people a future. That's my case. She's the best suited to turn this economy around, because there's not one problem, there are all those problems. My second point is, she is by far the best qualified to be Commander-in-Chief, to restore our standing in the world, bring the troops home from Iraq, fight the Al-Qaeda, rebuild the military, and take care of the veterans. And we've got to do them all. And again, this is something you don't have to take my word for. She has been endorsed by not one, but 2 former chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 35 retired generals and admirals. Every one of them want to bring the troops home from Iraq. But they want to do it in the best way. They want to make sure we protect the 100,000 American civilians. They want to make sure we bring the Iraqis out and put their lives on the line for our men and women. They support her idea that we should leave a few people there to counter the Al-Qaeda, because they want a third war in the Middle East. But they know we have to bring them home, because if we don't, the Iraqis will never make the hard decisions they have to make to save their country. We've seen that, haven't we? That's what General Petraeus said they would do. They have to decide how to spend their own money, how to share the political power. If we don't bring them home, they won't do it. We have been there longer than we were in World War II. We have 4,000 lost lives, 70,000 injured veterans. You have spent $600 billion. Exponential increases in mental health problems of men and women in the service required to do the second, the third, the fourth tour. More family breakup, more family violence. And your military is in bad shape. We've used the Army, the Marine Corps, the National Guard, the Reserves, and it's so bad that for a year, Navy reservists have been trained in Army infantry tactics, and they've been sent there. We've got to bring them home. But you want somebody to do it, you know we're doing it right. The second thing we have to do is to rebuild the military. Hillary wants to send a very different message to the world if you make her president. She wants to say, look, stop worrying about the way we've been. We're not going to act anymore like there's one set of rules for us and another set for everybody else. And that's what we've done, folks. Make no mistake about it. It's not just Iraq. Here's what we said to the world the last 7 years. Global warming is a big problem, but we have no intention of helping you solve it. We don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. But we're going to be the only country to withdraw from the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and try to develop 2 new nuclear weapons. You talk about a hard sell. Think about trying to get your neighbor to that. I don't want you to have even one of them, what I have 1,500 of, and I'm now trying to get 2 new of. Maybe you could sell it, but I think it's a hard sell. So she wants to say something different. America is back. We are back in the cooperation business. We're going to work with you whenever we can, and act alone only when we have to, not the other way around. And we are back in the diplomacy business, and military force will be only used as an absolute last resort, not the other way around. And I will say again, you cannot do that. You cannot do that in the world we're living in unless the military is credible. People have to want to enlist and re-enlist. And they have to not be embarrassed by things like having the military commander-in-chief say, we're not going to be bound by the Geneva Conventions. Please don't torture our people, but we reserve the right to torture yours. We can't do that. So she wants to send a different message.